The movie begins with two brothers, Daniel and Alex Ladomas, running in fear through the hallway of the Ladomas' mansion. Daniel quickly hides young Alex inside a cupboard to protect him. Just then, a wounded man named Charlie, dressed in a wedding suit with an arrow stuck in his body, stumbles toward Daniel. He begs Daniel to help him, saying that the family is trying to kill him. But instead of helping, Daniel gives away his hiding place. Moments later, the rest of the Ladomas family enters, wearing masks. They shoot another arrow at Charlie, injuring him even more. Nearby, the bride, Helene, pleads with them to stop. Ignoring her, the masked family members drag Charlie away. Helene slowly accepting the horrifying situation around her. 30 years later, a woman named Grace sits in her wedding dress in Alex Ladoma's room, ready to marry him. Even though his family dislikes her and thinks she's after their money, Grace truly loves Alex and is excited to join the family. Daniel enters and jokingly warns her that it's not too late to run away, saying she doesn't belong in their family, but he means it as a compliment. Grace, however, stays confident and refuses to back out. After Daniel leaves, Alex seriously tells Grace that they can still leave everything behind and escape together. But Grace laughs it off and says she's fully committed. Outside, Grace takes her wedding photos, and we are introduced to Alex's family. There is his aunt Helene, his brother Daniel with his wife Charity, and Alex's parents, Tony and Becky. The wedding happens, and Grace and Alex get married. Later that night, Grace and Alex go to his room to spend some time alone. Suddenly, Grace notices someone and gets scared. It is Aunt Helene standing there. Alex gets annoyed and asks her to give them a moment, but Helene says everyone is waiting for them. After she leaves, Grace is confused and asks what is going on. Alex then explains that his family has a tradition. At midnight, whenever someone new joins the family, they must play a game with everyone. He says it's part of their family ritual because their wealth comes from board games. Grace asks what game it is, but Alex says he doesn't know. It depends on the card she picks, and it could be anything. He also tells her she doesn't have to win, she just has to play. And once it's done, she will officially become part of the family. Even though Grace finds it a bit strange, she agrees to it, saying that if playing a game is all it takes for his family to accept her, she is ready to do it. Shortly after, Grace goes downstairs to the music room where Alex's family is waiting. Becky, Alex's mother, talks to her and reveals she knows about Grace's foster childhood. Grace explains she always wanted a real, permanent family, which is why this marriage means so much to her. Becky warmly accepts her and says she is grateful that Grace brought Alex back to the family, but also asks her to convince Alex to stay close and take his place in the family legacy. Grace, a bit confused but wanting to fit in, promises she will. Just then, Alex comes and takes Grace away. He asks what his mother said, but Grace simply smiles and says nothing important, hiding the real conversation. Here we also get introduced to Alex's sister Emily, along with her husband Fitch and their two children who just arrived. At midnight, the whole family gathers in the game room where Alex's father, Tony Ladomas, begins explaining the family tradition. He tells the story of their ancestor Victor Ladomas, who once met a mysterious man named Mr. LaBelle during a sea journey. This man gave him a strange box and promised wealth if Victor could unlock the box. So Victor Ladomas, the great-grandfather, successfully solved the mystery of the box during his journey. Because of that, Mr. LaBelle kept his promise and gave him wealth. After that, the Ladomas family became extremely rich, and since then, they have followed a ritual. Whenever a new member joins the family, they must play a game chosen by this box. Tony explains that a blank card is placed inside the box, and the new member must draw a card. Whatever game appears must be played. Grace is told it's her turn, so she pulls out a card. As she reads it, it says, "Hide and seek." Hearing this, both Alex and Daniel become visibly tense, but they try to act normal. Tony then explains the rules in a calm way. Grace has to hide somewhere inside the house, and the rest of the family will count to 100 and then come looking for her. Grace jokes about them having an advantage with cameras, but Tony says they never use them and always follow the old rules. When she asks if she can win, Tony says she just has to stay hidden until dawn. Grace agrees to play and goes to hide. After Grace goes to hide, Tony gives weapons to all the family members except Alex. Becky tells Alex to stay in the room and asks Charity to watch the door so he doesn't leave. Meanwhile, Grace hides inside a dumbwaiter, but Alex secretly escapes through a hidden door into the servants' corridor. Soon, Charity realizes he is gone. At the same time, Grace gets bored of waiting inside the dumbwaiter and steps out. A servant nearby is looking for Emily's son, Georgie, who has sneaked out of bed, so Grace quickly hides. Just then, Alex finds Grace and pulls her into hiding moments before the servant enters the room. Suddenly, Emily mistakenly shoots the servant, killing her instead of Grace. This shocks Grace completely. The family gathers, scolds Emily for the mistake, and drags the dead body away. After they leave, Alex urgently tells Grace the truth. She picked the one bad card, hide and seek. Because of this, the family believes they must kill her before sunrise or something terrible will happen to them. Hearing this, Grace is completely shocked and terrified. Then Alex and Grace hide inside the servants' corridor. Alex quickly tells her to put on her shoes. He admits that he knew about the ritual but never thought she would pull the hide-and-seek card because it's extremely rare. Grace gets angry, realizing Alex kept this from her. Alex explains that if she hadn't played the game, both of them would have died, as it has happened to others in his family before. He says that when someone marries into the family, they must follow the rules, or they die. Grace feels betrayed and shocked that he brought her into this without warning. Alex apologizes and admits that he always preferred to live with her without getting married, but he knew Grace wanted something real and permanent, so he proposed for her sake. Promising to protect her, he tells her to escape through the hallway to the kitchen while he goes to unlock the doors from the security room. Though scared to be alone, Grace agrees, and the two separate, hoping to survive. While moving through the corridor, Grace tears part of her wedding dress to make it easier to run. At the end, she finds two doors and randomly chooses one, but it leads her into a hall where Daniel, Tony, and Helene are carrying a dead servant. Terrified, she turns to escape but suddenly runs into Emily, who starts shooting wildly. Luckily, all the shots miss and Grace manages to slip past her. She tries to escape the mansion, but soon realizes that all the doors and windows are locked, trapping her inside. Grace hears someone coming and quickly hides, but it turns out to be Daniel. He calmly enters, saying he just came for a drink. Grace begs him to help her, but Daniel says he doesn't want to hurt her, yet he won't go against the family. Instead, he gives her a small chance and tells her he'll give her a 10-second head start. As he starts counting, Grace runs for her life. After she escapes, Daniel loudly tells the others that she is in the study. Soon, Charity arrives first and argues with Daniel, calling him careless for letting Grace escape, but Daniel remains calm and doesn't seem too concerned. One by one, the rest of the family gathers, that only to realize Grace has already escaped again. At the same time, Charity reveals that Alex is also missing, which makes Tony angry. In the chaos, Emily forgets her weapon and gets frustrated, so Fitch gives her his crossbow. Suddenly, a servant runs in to inform them about Grace's location, but Emily accidentally shoots and kills the servant again. This frustrates everyone even more. Seeing the situation getting worse, Helene declares that if they don't find Grace and perform the ritual before dawn, they will all die. Becky then suggests using the security cameras to find Grace quickly, and this time Tony agrees, ordering everyone to split up to search for both Grace and Alex. Grace reaches the game room and decides to arm herself by taking a shotgun from display. She then moves toward the kitchen door and waits for Alex to unlock the exits. Suddenly, the butler enters the room, so Grace quickly hides. At the same time, Alex reaches the security room and manages to turn the cameras back on, but struggles to unlock the doors at first. Meanwhile, Grace realizes the shotgun is empty and quietly loads it while the butler calmly prepares tea. After trying several codes, Alex finally unlocks the doors. Hearing this, the butler moves toward the door. Grace takes the chance and sneaks up behind him, aiming the shotgun and pulling the trigger. But nothing happens. The butler calmly tells her the gun is only for display. Thinking fast, Grace smashes a teapot on his face, burning him. In response, the butler grabs a knife and starts swinging wildly to stop her from escaping. With no other choice, Grace runs back inside to find another way out. Meanwhile, Alex's father, Tony, reaches the security room and starts banging on the door. Realizing he's about to get caught, Alex quickly tries to destroy the control panel of the security cameras. When Tony finally gets inside, he angrily attacks Alex, but Alex manages to overpower him and pin him down. At that moment, Daniel steps in and tries to calm Alex. He tells him he doesn't have to do this and promises to help him get Grace out safely. Alex, desperate, believes him, but suddenly Tony strikes Alex on the head, knocking him unconscious. They then handcuff Alex. At the same time, Grace is moving through the halls, trying to find a place to hide. She opens the dumbwaiter again and finds a frightened servant hiding inside. But instead of staying quiet, the servant starts shouting, revealing Grace's location. In panic, the servant accidentally presses a button, causing the dumbwaiter to move upward and crush her to death. Grace continues running through the house. Meanwhile, the butler informs the family that he couldn't fix the security system, and now all the doors and windows are unlocked. This makes the family panic, and they decide to guard all exits to stop Grace from escaping. At the same time, Tony and Helene argue about Alex. Helene believes that Alex will eventually accept his true role as the future leader of the family and stop helping Grace. She reveals that she once faced the same situation and believes Alex must accept the truth and complete the ritual. Tony, however, argues that Alex has always hated the family and their rituals. While this conversation is happening, Grace is right outside the window, secretly listening to everything. Then Grace decides to escape and jumps down, landing on a patch of bushes. Nearby, Fitch hears a sound and looks around, but he doesn't see her. Now that she's finally outside, Grace starts running and hides inside a barn when she notices someone walking around with a flashlight. It turns out to be Georgie, Emily's young son. Thinking she's safe, Grace comes out of hiding, but suddenly Georgie shoots her in the hand. Shocked and in pain, Grace reacts and knocks the child unconscious. As she tries to move, a goat suddenly startles her, causing her to fall into a deep ditch. Inside, she finds herself surrounded by rotting dead bodies, making her feel sick. She struggles to climb up with her injured hand, but just as she reaches the top, the ladder collapses under her. With no other choice, she uses her wounded hand to pull herself up, but her palm gets pierced by a nail. Despite the pain, she manages to climb out. Once out, she tears a piece of her dress and wraps it around her injured hand to stop the bleeding. Outside, Charity sees Grace running out of the barn and tries to shoot her, but misses. She quickly goes back inside and informs the butler about Grace's location. Outside, Grace finally reaches the main gate. When she sees a car passing by, she desperately squeezes herself out of the gate and shouts for help, but the car doesn't stop and just drives away. Right after that, Grace notices a car coming from Ladoma's house, so she quickly runs into the woods to hide. Meanwhile, the butler spots that Grace has escaped the property. After that, the butler informs Tony that Grace has escaped into the woods. The family starts to panic, believing that if she survives until dawn, they will all die. Tony becomes furious and reminds everyone that this is not a game, while Daniel mocks the situation, saying it literally is hide and seek. This leads to an argument between father and son, as Daniel clearly doesn't believe in the curse, making Tony question his loyalty. To handle the situation, Becky gives orders. She tells Charity and Fitch to assist the butler and sends Emily and Daniel to dispose of the dead servants. Meanwhile, Alex wakes up in the bedroom and struggles to free himself from the handcuffs. In the barn, Daniel and Emily begin dumping the servants' bodies into the ditch. During this, Emily wonders if the curse is actually real, but Daniel says he doesn't believe it and even feels that their entire family deserves to die. Emily disagrees, saying her children don't deserve that fate. Just then, Georgie wakes up and tells them he followed Grace and even shot her. Instead of being concerned, Emily praises him, showing how twisted the family has become. Back to Grace, she runs through a field while the butler chases her in a car. He gets out and fights her, but Grace manages to choke him using a piece of cloth from her dress and escapes by taking the car. However, the butler soon regains consciousness. While driving, Grace calls a helpline and asks them to contact the police. The operator agrees, but also informs her that the car is reported stolen and remotely disables it, causing the car to stop suddenly. Exhausted but slightly relieved that the police are on the way, Grace pauses for a moment. Suddenly, the butler breaks the car window and shoots her with a sedative, knocking her out. She later wakes up tied in the backseat while he drives and video calls the family. Thinking quickly, Grace attacks him from behind, hitting him repeatedly until he loses control, causing a crash. Grace survives and crawls out of the car. Soon, Daniel shows up and walks toward Grace with a shotgun. He admits that he doesn't want to kill her and even says he likes her, but he feels too weak to go against his family. Grace tries to convince him that the curse isn't real and that no one is going to die by morning and begging him to let her go. Believing he has no choice, Daniel knocks Grace out. Right after that, Daniel calls out his father, and Tony steps out from behind the trees, who was secretly watching the whole time to test Daniel's loyalty. Daniel admits he knew Tony was there, and Tony tells him they need to hurry since dawn is close and they must prepare Grace for the ritual. While still handcuffed to the bed, Alex is visited by his mother, Becky. He immediately asks about Grace, but Becky calmly tells him she's been taken care of. Becky tells him that she believes he will eventually come to his senses and choose his family over Grace. However, Alex firmly refuses and says he will keep fighting for Grace. He tells Becky that Grace is kind and good, unlike the rest of his family, and makes it clear that he will never turn against her. Meanwhile, the rest of the family prepares for the ritual to sacrifice Grace to Mr. LaBelle. Grace wakes up tied to the dining table, helpless, as the family surrounds her and begins performing a dark ritual. One by one, they drink from a chalice, and Tony finally steps forward with a knife, ready to kill her. But suddenly, the family members begin spitting blood. It is then revealed that Daniel secretly mixes hydrochloric acid in the drink to save Grace. Taking advantage of the chaos, he quickly unties her and helps her escape from the room. Back in the bedroom, Alex finally manages to free himself from the handcuffs. At the same time, Daniel and Grace try to escape through the halls, but they are suddenly stopped by Daniel's wife, Charity, who points a gun at them. Realizing that Daniel is not going to hand Grace over, Charity shoots him in the throat. Shocked and furious, Grace fights back and manages to knock Charity unconscious. She then rushes to Daniel, who is badly injured. With his last strength, Daniel tells her to run and save herself. Grace, heartbroken, continues to escape. As she moves forward, she is stopped by Tony Ladomas. Thinking quickly, Grace grabs a lantern and knocks him out, and Grace continues to run to escape. Meanwhile, Alex searches for Grace, but instead finds Daniel lying on the ground. He rushes to him, but it's too late. Daniel dies in Alex's arms, and it's clear that this moment deeply breaks him. Inside the dining room, Becky finds Grace, and the two get into a violent fight on the floor. Pushed to her limit, Grace fights back with everything she has and repeatedly hits Becky, eventually killing her. Just at that moment, Alex walks into the room. He sees his mother dead and is already shaken from Daniel's death. Broken and emotional, Alex walks up to Grace and asks her if she will still stay with him after everything. Grace hesitates now. Overcome with anger, Alex suddenly turns against Grace. He grabs her and calls out to his family. Soon, the rest of the family enters the room and heartbroken finding Becky's dead body. With no time left before dawn, they quickly prepare to perform the ritual again. Unbeknownst to them, the lantern Grace threw earlier had already started a fire, which now begins to spread throughout the mansion. The family holds Grace down on the dining table, and Alex steps forward to stab her. At the last moment, Grace manages to move away and break free from their grip. Just then, a ray of sunlight enters through the curtains. It's already morning. The family freezes in fear, thinking the curse will now take effect. But for a brief moment, nothing happens, making it seem like they are safe after all. However, Aunt Helene refuses to accept this and tries to kill Grace with an axe. Suddenly, she bursts into pieces. One by one, the rest of the Ladomas family also starts to explode, proving that the curse was real all along. Grace, covered in blood, and begins to laugh in shock and disbelief. Alex, now terrified and broken, walks toward her like a helpless child, begging for comfort. But Grace, who now hates him for everything, rejects him and says she wants a divorce. Moments later, Alex also explodes. As the mansion continues burning, Grace briefly sees the mysterious figure of Mr. LaBelle sitting calmly, confirming his presence. Finally, she walks out of the burning house, covered in blood, sits on the front steps, and lights a cigarette, just as the police arrive. And the movie ends. And that wraps up Ready or Not. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling movie stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.